Good afternoon. Brenda Rogers, the District Extension Director for the Southwest District, and I am really happy to see so many of you on my screen and joining us today. As with everything, we would much prefer being in someone's large conference room and being all together face to face and enjoying the fellowship as well as the time of learning and sharing. But for this year, everybody knows everything's different, and we are just going in whatever manner we need to get the job done. I would like to remind you that we are recording today's session so that those that are not able to join us for a variety of reasons are able to later on listen to the parts that that they'll have the most interest in, but we will provide that link to you at a later time. I spoke to Dr. Vavrina, Charlie Vavrina, a little while ago, and I reached out to him to ask him if he could recall what year we started holding Gateway events. And he very promptly sent me back the date, August 7th, 2009. And he asked me if we were still doing it. And I said, of course we are, because it's the one time a year that we get together with our county partners and have an opportunity to dialogue and to showcase some of the opportunities and connections for engagement with the greater University of Florida. And so he asked that I share his regards to all of you. And I think he almost wishes he could have been here today. Not quite, but retirement's good for Charlie. So I do want to mention to you that we have a packed program for you today, and I shared with our speakers that I will be giving them a two-minute warning, and that we have to stick very closely to our schedule in order to get it all packed in. Normally we have a 3-hour agenda, and today we're putting it into a 2-hour. I'd like to draw your attention to the packets that were prepared for you. And there are success stories that reflect work in all of our 11 counties of the Southwest District, and all of our program areas are also represented. And then we put specific pages for your county of the contact numbers and some of the highlights of the last program year. So you'll have some information that just pertains to you. And if you did not receive a packet, your county extension director will be able to get additional packets for you. And we will be sharing some of the materials on our district website a little bit later on. We'll also send you the link for that. And our speaker bibliography will come out later in the week. So I think that I am going to go ahead and move us forward. Our first presenter is our Dean, Nick Place. And this introduction of Dr. Place comes with I guess, mixed emotions. This will be the last time that I get to introduce him as our Dean and Director of the University of Florida IFAS Extension, because he is, as we speak, literally moving to Georgia, where he will be the Dean for Extension for the University of Georgia Extension Service. And so I'd like to share that Dean Place has been in Florida since 2012. Again, he was here earlier. He started out as an extension agent, which is something that we all love because we know that's where the rubber meets the road. And also close to my heart, he started out as a dairy extension agent. And some of you know that I grew up on a dairy farm, and so I also have a lot of fond memories of that. And I know we have a lot of those memories in common with Dean Place. But Dean Place is an advocate for extension, as you would expect, just based on his position and his effort throughout the years. But he's also an advocate for the individual programs. He's a great partner for county operations, and we've just been really fortunate and blessed to have him as our leader for so many years. So I'm going to stop now. Dean Place is on the phone, so you'll get to listen to him for just a few minutes, and then we'll go on with our program. So Dean Place, you're on.
Well, Brenda, thank you very much for that very kind introduction. And I do wish, as you said, that we could all be there in person for sure. I always appreciated getting together with our Southwest District folks, with the CEDs and faculty, as well as our county partners that we have there in that district. And as you said, Brenda, the Southwest District has really been at the forefront of this effort that we call Gateway. Now we call UF Engagement is really the broader term we use. But also, as you said, that it's kind of a bittersweet time for me. It's a very emotional time where I have been at UF for a long time, and I've certainly appreciated all the people and the programs we do. And also, as you said, I'm in the process of transitioning now to University of Georgia. So I'm on the phone with you here for a little bit this afternoon. I do want to also kind of set the stage for what we are aiming to do with this UF engagement or gateway effort. And as you think about extension, we have been at this for over 100 years across the country, as well as what we do here in Florida. And extension, in partnership with our county governments, has made such a tremendous difference in the lives of so many people. It is advanced agriculture production. It is help families cope with different kind of issues with financial issues and nutrition issues and wellness. Through our 4-H program, we've been able to advance lots of youth and get them to think about career opportunities and to establish businesses and other kind of things that have helped them take advantage of their skills and abilities and advance in leadership kind of things that they do. There's things that we've done in the area of natural resources, water issues, and I could just go on and on. But really, our job in extension is to do what we can to bring the latest research and knowledge from your land grant university, the University of Florida, out to you as county partners and constituents to help you really put this knowledge to work. I would also say, too, that this 3-way partnership we have between local government, state, and federal government really is at the core of who we are and what we do. And that's why I so appreciate the things that we're doing there in the Southwest District to bring our county partners together to have a in-depth conversation in regards to some of the new things we're working on, as well as what we need to hear from you as we think about advancing this partnership. The work that we do in Extension has typically been centered in IFAS, the Institute of Food and Agriculture Sciences, which is all about agriculture, natural resources, families, all the water issues, other kind of things that we've hit upon. But as we really look at the land grant university of today and tomorrow, we've got to be thinking about how do we connect with and engage with the broader land grant university, the University of Florida, and how do we bring the expertise, the knowledge and research from the broader university out to you and connect with you in some of the things that we're doing across the state at the local level. So that's the whole initiative that we're talking about here. And this gets to things such as what we would do of connecting with health and human performance, the College of Health, engineering, design, construction, and planning, and so many other colleges that we have located across the University of Florida. And you'll be hearing some about them today through today's presentation here over the next couple of hours. Also, as we think about extension moving into the future, we've got to think not only about the traditional audiences we've been working with for so many years, but also the things that we do in non-traditional audiences and connecting with urban areas and urban constituents. And this needs to be done in a complementary both and kind of way, not an either or way. Because when you think about the issues that we work with in extension, they don't stop at one particular border or another. They cut across boundaries and cut across peoples. And that's why We also want to work intentionally with you all as county partners as we deal with some of these big, large issues that we have. I would also say, too, that we have a tremendous partnership with the Florida Association of Counties. And I know I've had a chance to meet many of you as county commissioners, county administrators through that partnership that we have. And I know that that is also going to be continuing as we move into the future. And it comes down to what impact are we able to make? That is the impact of our work and the differences that we're making in the lives of people and communities all across the state with Florida. I would also say, too, to pick up on what Brenda said, that yes, I am a short timer and I'll have very little time left here at the University of Florida working with you. But I do feel that Extension is in very good hands. Dr. Tom Obriza will be stepping in, serving as interim dean upon my departure here in about a couple of weeks. And there is a national search that is underway. And we hope that we'll have and planning to have somebody here late spring, early summer to step in as a director. But I am very confident in Dr. Breeze's abilities and leadership here over the next few months as you go through this transitional time. And with all that said, too, I know that these efforts that we have underway, the things we've been doing over these last several years, will be continuing. I don't see us letting off the foot off the gas, I'll say. And there's still a lot of progress that is being planned. There's no let up on the momentum of these kind of things. So with that, Brenda, I will stop there with any comments that I have. And again, very glad to have a chance to be with you all here this afternoon. Now, do you hand it off to Heidi or do I?
Yes, sir, I will. Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much. So I do want to share that Dean Place is not going to be able to be with us during the whole 2 hours. And you'll notice on your agenda at the end, there's Dean's response with questions and answers, and Dr. Obriza will be filling in there. So we will be providing some answers to your questions. If you want to add those questions to the chat, that would be great. We'll also, we think that we'll be able to handle some questions through the raise your hand feature of the Teams platform. So there will be more about that, and our moderators will help us with the queue on the Q&A. So our next speaker is Dr. Heidi Redonovich. She's an associate professor and extension specialist in the Department of Family, Youth, and Community Sciences at the University of Florida. She's also the program director for UF Extension Engagement. And part of her role as the program director for engagement is to help connections between the larger university and extension. And so her programmatic background is linked to programs in mental health, disaster stress, working with military families, rural health, and she is a licensed psychologist in the state of Florida, and she's a tremendous asset to our programs, both in support of extension agents and staff in times of crisis and in service to our communities. So Dr. Redonovich is going to just share a little bit about her work as the program director for extension engagement. Thanks, Heidi.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to attend, Brenda. It's such a pleasure. And I really miss getting to see everybody in person, but I'm glad that you were able to still hold this event virtually. So to kind of give you a little bit of an explanation and to build on what Dr. Place has just spoken about, the university is really changing over time. You know, Extension has for many years worked rather independently and in a lot of ways separately from the rest of the university in serving the community. So we had our nice ivory tower. We've had Extension that has really been doing a lot of community outreach for many years, but on some very specific topics that we have expertise within our domain, things related to agriculture and families and youth. Those are things that we excel at. However, there is a lot more knowledge and expertise at the university than just what we can provide. And as communities have changed, we find that they're needing more, that there's more out there that our communities are really asking for and requiring. But I will say that at the University of Florida, and I've been here for over 20 years now, it's a huge place. Even now, there are so many places that I just don't even know. I'll find buildings and programs that I never knew existed. So it's very common at University of Florida, because it's such a big place, for there to be sort of a lack of connection with one another and with what's happening in other places. And one of the things that I was really seeing is that so many other departments and colleges at the university, really the faculty members didn't have a good sense about what extension was, or whether there were opportunities to do any sort of outreach to the community through extension. So I approached Dr. Place, I guess it's about 5 years ago, to talk about how we might be able to change this situation. And my feeling was that anything that we could do to sort of increase opportunities to work together with other parts of the university would be great for extension. It would help sort of make us be more known, and it can really help us as well as communities to benefit from some of that extra expertise that is out there. I will say that trying to find this sort of expertise on campus can be very frustrating. It can be very intimidating because it's big. Even just looking through, our directories can be dizzying. So I have served as sort of the point person for our counties and our county faculty to help make these connections. So as some of the needs have come up, people have been contacting me, and I've been trying to reach out throughout the university to find the right folks. And I guess I'm kind of a matchmaker, right? Trying to find good matches. And sometimes there isn't a good match, and that's okay. But we do have a lot to offer at the University of Florida, and there are a lot of folks who are really starting to see the value in trying to do more out in the community. Rather than just engaging in research at the university, they're able to kind of take their work and make it relevant. They're able to get it out there to people, and this has been really valuable. We've also seen a lot of opportunities for students at the university to engage in community work, and that's been really beneficial for them as well. One of the things that you'll be hearing about in a little while is one of our efforts, and that is with Martha Cohen from the Center for Hydrogenerated Urbanism, and she's going to be speaking to you a little bit later about that match that has worked out really well, and she is always looking to potentially partner with other communities as well. So I will end by saying I know that there are times when you need expertise that UF just doesn't have, or there are times when UF is looking to do some outreach, but they really, it's not appropriate for our communities. But we have found in a lot of cases there are some nice matches to be made. So we hope you will consider us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Heidi. Next, we start we've divided our program into two components, and the first one is a series of speakers that will be talking about health, wellness, and those kinds of topics, family well-being. And to kick off that topic, we have Dr. Michael Gutter, who is the Associate Dean for Extension and State Program Leader for 4-H Youth Development, Families and Communities in IFAS. Dr. Gutter started his career with Extension in Florida with IFAS as a family financial management specialist many years ago. And so he has a lot of experience in developing curriculum and doing work in this area. That was also the area of study for his PhD. And so as the program leader, he has responsibility for all of the family, youth, and community sciences programming. You're going to hear a little bit more about some of those areas with our other speakers. But and then probably everybody's familiar with the 4-H part of his assignment. So Dr. Gutter is going to kick off this section, and we'll turn the meeting over to him. Thanks, Dr. Gutter.
I wanted to unmute myself first. That seems to be the growing challenge. So I appreciate it, and I did set a timer for those who know me well. I thought that would be important. So what I wanted to start off talking a little bit about here is to showcase a little bit. We're going to talk about this idea of health and well-being, but I wanted to at least kind of show the perspective that cooperative extension takes on that, at least from a national standpoint here. So, oops, there we go. So what I wanted to first of all show is what's called the framework for health and wellness. So in other words, if we wanted to increase the number of, well, in this case, Floridians, and specifically your county residents who are healthy at every stage of life, what kind of systems have to be in place? What type of programs have to be in place? What are some of the challenges, barriers we're going to see to it? And so when we talk about Extension's role in playing all of this, we're not healthcare providers, but we do have a lot of role that we play in addressing what's called the social determinants of health and well-being. And so these include things like healthy lifestyles and environments. And I'll try to go through these quickly because I know our Dean, Dr. Place, of course, mentioned a lot of these very well in his presentation. But nutrition and food access, mental health and stress, healthcare literacy, economic disparities and challenges for how we overcome them, access to healthcare, and then, of course, even things, as Brenda mentioned, even positive youth development. The important thing for so many children right now who may not have all of those access to opportunities through schools or their homes. And of course, those who just need a little bit of extra fun. So what can this look like? Well, I'd like to spend a moment or two just breaking this down if I could. So first of all, when we think about health literacy and access, oh my goodness, there's a lot of opportunities here when we talk about what's there. So I wanted to, this will feel a little bit like a laundry list, but I wanted to make sure that people really kind of thought about all the things that are possible in our counties. And that is not to suggest, and Brenda, please forgive me if I'm wrong, we're not doing all of this in every county. Some of that's capacity, lots of different challenges, barriers, and priorities. But I wanted to mention this so that we understood that programs like this are certainly happening across the state in various counties. So nutrition, cooking, and food safety programs, including things like our family nutrition program, our Cook Smart, Eat Smart program, and numerous others that really try and incorporate healthy lifestyles, healthy living into people's normal daily lives. And for so many of this, one of the first steps to healthy living is healthy eating. Watching what we eat, thinking about the types of foods we have. We certainly know that there's food access programs for those in specific needs, and I'll give credit to a great project that took place with Dr. Nicole Duffy and Dr. Carla Shellnut, sorry, Carla, who did a neat project in Hillsborough County focusing on food as medicine, really targeting those who are really at risk of suffering with numerous chronic diseases, where really their diet changes were an important part of their recovery. These are really neat projects that we've been excited to bring to bear and really speak to it. We have some really strong and proven obesity reduction programs. And when I mean proven also in our rural communities. In fact, programs like Rural Leap were a program designed to really focus on rural obesity prevention and promote ideas like activity. And this was a long-standing project that existed with, of course, Public Health and Health PHHP, if you will, and Dean Mike Perry, who some of you may have met in previous conversations here for sure, and previously Dr. Linda Bobroff, and most recently Dr. Latoya O'Neill, who's our public health specialist for cooperative extension here in Florida. They've done a really great job of bringing these programs out there. And Dr. O'Neill's done a really strong job of introducing Let's Walk Florida, a neat program that is allowing us to help people focus on activity and healthy living as part of what they're doing. Because of COVID-19 and our responses to it, Dr. O'Neill and a team of county faculty actually did a wonderful job of piloting this to bring this into a virtual setting. So we're excited about this and does give good opportunities. As was mentioned, and of course we've already heard, we do have expertise here too, focusing on things like relationship education, mental health, especially things like dealing with stress, which is something that many of us, I think, are identifying with right now. And we are in the process of, and I don't know if Dr. Shankman will have time to talk about the numerous things, but we are in the process of exploring telehealth sites in rural counties in 2021 to promote access for non-contagious but chronic diseases. Now, speaking of chronic diseases, we've talked a lot about some general health issues too, but I wanted to talk about the really incredible work that our county faculty are doing in chronic disease education and management. And this includes focusing on diabetes risk reduction, and this has a lot to do with obesity and lifestyle management. We also have programs that focus on diabetes management and education for those who are living with diabetes. And this includes neat national programs like Dining with Diabetes, which focuses a lot on lifestyle, health, and again, nutrition-related issues. Program that we've had I will say, have done both virtually as well as in person is for hypertension and keeping the pressure down, which really focuses on those folks who are both living with and of course those who are being warned that they need to be keeping track of. And then most recently we have new projects that we're really focusing on with the Cancer Center. And this includes a program developed by Dr. Bobroff called Take Control to Reduce Your Cancer Risk. And this is a program we'll be updating and making available. A program for new cancer patients that's in development and will be released in early 2021, if not before. Take control of your cancer diagnosis. And most importantly, or most new, I would say, is a launch of a pilot focusing on financial counseling that many of our county faculty are able to do for oncology patients to address the financial challenges they're facing. So there's a lot of innovative changes. Some of the things that we have done, I would say that we've done a lot of and done great for the last 100 years, as well as some new innovations that we've been working on that we're introducing out here to really help so many of us with our numerous health challenges that we have. As our dean mentioned, there's a lot of wicked issues that we're dealing with, and part of those is, of course, managing our health and, of course, paying for it and making the complex decisions. So what can that look like? Well, some of you are visual. I'm kind of a visual person too, and Brenda, we can certainly make these infographics available. I know you're a fan of infographics as well, so I thought I'd share a few. These aren't all from this district, and so I apologize for that. I did my best to locate the ones I could, my friends. But I did want to at least show you examples of what we're looking at here. And so in Marion County, really focusing on the Take Charge of Your Diabetes program. So when we looked at this, 115 participants in Marion County on average increased frequency of their diabetes management behaviors. And so when we look at these, this is always very important. As we know, being able to manage these diseases can certainly do all that we can. We can't always prevent progression. We can't always prevent other challenges and complications, but there are some things we can take control of, and that's what we're trying to provide the education for, focusing on the things that people might be able to address, because that's certainly part of the puzzle. Okay, let me switch gears here in the interest of time, because I don't want to be one of the folks Brenda has to warn about timing here. So on one side of this, and as a researcher, I will confess that these two things are quite linked in my mind, and that doesn't mean that everyone agrees with me, but economic disparities and challenges are certainly part of the puzzle of some of the health outcomes that we see and challenges we face. There's a lot of other pieces, as we saw to that, but something we've been focusing on is understanding the role that this does play in addressing disparities. So what kind of programs have we been trying to create to address financial well-being? And a lot of this has to do with trying to meet unserved needs, working with our partners and local communities to address those. So one of our long-standing programs that we've had going back to about 2010, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Master Gardener program. And as we've often say, there's a volunteer base for a lot of our different initiatives. And one of those is the Florida Master Money Mentor Volunteer Program. This is a program that's actually in several of your counties, I know for sure, been quite widely used to create a volunteer base to help families address basic questions, work on budgets and things like that at home. Many of our agents in this district and beyond are pursuing something called an accredited financial counselor designation. And this is really focusing on the fact that some people have really complex questions. And so our agents have been putting together small groups of families to address their challenges that they're learning about through our other programs. An opportunity to have the right background for follow-up conversations. Where are those follow-up conversations coming from? Well, some of the following programs are examples of that. The Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program has been focusing on providing tax preparation support for low-income families, as well as facilitated self-assistance programs to help those who are still struggling with getting their taxes correct and really are not in a position to pay for any other types of services. We do this in partnership with our local, with other local providers. We're not trying to step on toes when we're offering these programs. Many times we're trying to make sure that there isn't anyone slipping between the cracks. So that's certainly the case with our VITA program, as there are several other partners involved. But there's been some good opportunities and innovations using virtual and telepresence technology. This past tax season, we were able to continue a lot of our support programs because of our digital infrastructure and still meeting families' needs to do their taxes, to help them with their tax support. We also have been able to provide HUD-approved first-time home buyer, home ownership maintenance, and renters education and counseling programs. Through collaborations across counties, including many from this district, we're starting to able to provide these both online as well as in person, and now offering them bilingually as well. We want to make sure that we're able to support our families on one of their critical issues of those, the many challenges they face with respect to housing. On the business development side, entrepreneurship and small business education is certainly a large part of what we've done for years through the agricultural communities, but also promoting food-based businesses. And I know Brenda will make sure everyone's aware of all of the different resources in her district that promote this, but we certainly have a lot of opportunities to connect our producers to new markets as well as others. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention adult and youth just general financial literacy programs on this front. We certainly, while we've talked about some of the specialized financial disparities programs, we provide a whole array of general financial literacy projects, including one of our well-known Florida Saves programs that focuses on promoting savings, not the accumulation of debt. So I wanted to pause there and really just kind of once again show some visuals as I'm winding that down, because I certainly wanted to make sure that everyone, again, just had a chance to see these. As you can see, this is some of the work that we've been able to do in the VITA project here. And so a lot of this has really shown the type of economic impact. And these are annualized returns. So in any given year, we've done this in about a dozen counties. So if this is something that you know some of your counties are struggling with and really making sure, make sure you're connecting with Brenda, because we can talk about how these programs can be a part of what we're able to introduce into your communities to address some of the economic challenges they're faces. So, and again, just everything about how to start a food business and our Home Flow program, which is one of the home maintenance and living in your home type of conversations that's just as important. You bought one, now what? And that's what programs like Home Flow are so important for as well. So let me just pause there, Brenda. I think I'm about out of time if I remember from the calendar. So I'm going to stop my presentation, of course, so that we can do that. And I want to thank everybody for letting me share a little bit about this. And it is my real pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who I know a few of you have had a chance to meet in a few meetings from various counties, but I think you're going to find her a wonderful, wonderful partner for so many of the conversations and concerns we have. So I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Shankman, who is the chair of the department, and Dr. Shankman is the chair of the Department of Health Outcomes and Biomedical Informatics and the co-director of the University of Florida Clinical and Translational Sciences Institute and the Associate Director for Community Outreach and Engagement in the UF Health Cancer Center. Dr. Shankman really is a health outcomes researcher with a research focus on determining the combinations of healthcare delivery, community, and patient factors that influence the quality and outcomes of care, developing and testing correspondence, evidence-based strategies to reduce disparities in health outcomes among underserved populations. Now, let me break down some of these responsibilities, because she won't have time to do all of these herself, if you don't mind. In her role as the CTSI co-director and co-principal director, Dr. Shankman leads the Learning Health System Initiative, including interfacing with clinicians, health systems leaders, researchers, and patients to align system and clinical operations to systematically improve health outcomes and advance health equity using real-world data combined with implementation and improvement science methodologies. In addition, Dr. Shankman leads the One Florida Clinical Research Consortium, which was developed through the CTSI. The Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute funded One Florida Clinical Research Network is comprised of 10 different health system partners caring for over 15 million Floridians, or approximately 60% of the population in the third largest state in the U.S. The Floridians in this network include vulnerable populations who are rarely or minimally included in traditional clinical visits. A hallmark of the One Florida is its centralized data trust, which contains linked healthcare claims, electronic health records, tumor registry, vital statistics, and census data from its health systems partners for cohort delivery, study feasibility determination, and to augment primary data collection activities. As the Associate Director of Community Outreach and Engagement for the UF Health Cancer Center, Dr. Shankman facilitates investigators access to One Florida clinical settings and the data trust to ensure that underserved populations are included in cancer-focused interventional trials. She further works closely diverse clinical settings through the UF Health Cancer Center rural catchment area to enhance cancer prevention and screening initiatives, particularly those focused on underserved women and young adults. Dr. Shankman is an MPI for the NIH Office of the Director-funded All of Us Precision Medicine Cohort Initiative in collaboration with the Universities of Miami, Emory, and the Morehouse School of Medicine. In that capacity, she is responsible for overseeing community engagement and recruitment and retention efforts focused on rural and underserved populations in North Florida. She's also the PI of a U18 funded by the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and that project is using electronic health record data to better measure quality outcomes of care for children in Medicaid, particularly those who are receiving antipsychotic medication and hence are at risk for metabolic syndrome. Dr. Shankman's research is funded by PCORI, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, NIH, and the National Cancer Institute. Her work is published in journals such as Pediatrics, Health Services Research, Clinical Epidemiology, Pediatric Blood and Cancer, and the American Journal of Public Health. Dr. Shankman is also an elected member of the Society for Pediatric Research and the American Pediatric Society. And to top it all off, she's a fantastic partner, and appreciate her taking the time here to join us. Dr. Shankman, the floor is yours.
Mike, thank you for the wonderful introduction. So I really wanted to focus more on our catchment area characteristics for the Cancer Center. And I will mention One Florida, but I won't talk a whole lot about it today. But the reason why I wanted to focus on the Cancer Center catchment area is because of all the great work that you're doing around prevention, which really has a great deal to do with a lot of the nutritional work that you're doing, a lot of the outreach that you do, and you're involved in several projects. Take control of your cancer risk, take control of your cancer diagnosis, but also Dr. Gutter is doing some really amazing and innovative work, along with all of you, I'm sure, around the financial toxicity. And that's extremely important for cancer treatment. So this is showing the UF Health Cancer Center catchment area. It's outlined in red, and this is a 23 contiguous county area in North Florida with 2.3 million people, or about 11% of the state population. And 77% of the patients that we see at our cancer center come from one of the counties or more outlined in red. And one of the things that's notable about our catchment area, and you know this so well from county extension far better than anyone else on this campus, but we have a disproportionate number of the rural and economically challenged counties in Florida within our catchment area. So we have over half of them. The other portion of these rural and economically challenged counties are further west of our catchment area, further into the Panhandle, and then also concentrated in the Highlands area. And one of the things that really, I think, stands out in terms of our catchment area demographics, again, probably not a surprise to any of you, but it certainly was, I think, for our Cancer Center membership, important for them to learn this and recognize this, is that we are really dealing with a disproportionately white population. And you can see a comparison of the United States, Florida, and our 23-county catchment area, as well as comparing our non-rural catchment area counties, which is predominantly Leon, Alachua, and then the counties to our south, to those that are rural and economically distressed. And you can see we have a very high percentage that are white. The next highest percentage are Black, and the majority, the highest percentage of them do reside in our rural, economically distressed areas. We also have a population that's over 65, and quite a high percentage of them. And 1 in 5 people live in poverty. So those are very important characteristics. The other thing that characterizes our catchment area is the relatively low educational attainment. And you can see high school or less, any college, and then a bachelor's degree. And particularly in our rural areas, we have the highest percentage of people that have a high school diploma or less. This is just simply showing population trends in our catchment area, and I want to draw attention to a couple of things. One, the majority of our population in the Cancer Center catchment area is falling between the ages of 20 and up to 64 years of age. And so we have a relatively young age cohort, but very importantly, the age cohort that we're dealing with really do fall into a category of very high-risk behaviors. We have among the highest obesity in the state of Florida, in North Florida. We also have among the highest tobacco use, both among adults as current smokers, but also among teens and young adults in terms of e-cigarette use and vaping. And you know, if you look at what we're talking about on a national picture, this age cohort is really characterized by what they call the deaths of despair. And so we really have, I think, you know, a huge area where we can focus on related to all the prevention activities that are so important to county extension and really the trust in the community. The other thing I want to point out about our demographic trends is our age 65 plus cohort is it is increasing in the state in general and in the United States. But if you look at the orange line, that's our particular Cancer Center catchment area, our 23-county area, and that's increasing the most rapidly for the age 65 and plus. And then, of course, UF Health has recently acquired hospitals in Central Florida, both at the Villages as well as in Leesburg, and that certainly has increased our age 65 and above age cohort. And this slide is just showing you some information about our age-adjusted cancer incidence, advanced stage cancers, and mortality rates. Now, these are rates per 100,000. I'm not showing you the raw numbers, but it is important to look at the raw numbers as well, because in some of the categories we have relatively small numbers, even though the rates may be very high. But what stands out, first you'll notice that cancers highlighted in red reflect the tobacco-related cancers. So lung, colorectal, oropharyngeal, bladder, kidney, cervical cancer, cancer of the esophagus. These are tobacco-related cancers. So these are areas that are really important for us to address in terms of prevention. But also very importantly, you can see that topping our list in terms of advanced stage diagnoses as well as mortality certainly is lung cancer, breast cancer. In terms of mortality, the next one is prostate, followed by blood. Advanced stage diagnoses, blood cancers, like lymphomas, leukemias, followed by colorectal cancer. So I think these are very important areas, and this is where the work that Dr. Gutter and others in County Extension that are doing, it's so innovative. To treat these cancers are very, very expensive. This can result in huge financial burden for families. And so the work that is being done to refer patients to financial counselors, not only in our catchment area, but in other counties or throughout the state of Florida, is incredibly valuable. The other thing I really want to point out is that nutrition, we now know so much more about the role of obesity and the development of cancers. And so the role role that you play in terms of the nutrition and healthy meals. Not only are those important for patients that have cancer and are in the midst of treatment and financially challenged, but this is extremely important for prevention. And so we're very, very excited about the partnership that we have with County Extension around the already great work you're doing in financial counseling, but now making sure that's specifically linked for high-risk patients that have been diagnosed with cancer, but also opportunities around telehealth visits and opportunities to bring people into County Extension where they can have a telehealth visit, be screened. We are looking at different screening approaches around self-testing for colorectal cancer, around self-swabs for cervical cancer, but also have that be a time then where the people coming in can also get information about nutrition. So this one is a very cancer-focused related few minutes I'm spending with you, but we also have partners throughout the state of Florida as part of our One Florida Clinical Research Consortium, ranging from Tallahassee Memorial and Leon County down to the University of Miami in South Florida. And so we're very excited about testing out some of these innovations around telehealth, financial counseling, and screening in the northern part of our state, and then working to export lessons learned and adapt and adopt those lessons throughout Florida using the county extension offices. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions. And again, I appreciate your patience with the technological challenges I'm having with Teams today.
Thank you very much. We do have another Q&A session in after our two rapid speakers, and so we'll go ahead and introduce them, and then we'll come back. And again, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. And if we don't get to answer your question, we will be developing a Q&A paper that will be attached to the meeting notes and materials. So we will get answers from the appropriate speakers. Thanks very much. Okay. Answered my question. So our next speaker is an extension agent, and Wendy Lynch is a leader in the state in teaching programs in chronic disease prevention, lifestyle intervention programs, including weight management, heart health, and type 2 diabetes prevention. She's been an extension agent since 2006 and has really done an excellent job in building her educational programs in her county. The title of her presentation is Program Successes in Health and Wellness, and she's going to share some of the work that she's been doing in Putnam County and also in her leadership role with the design team for these programs through the Family, Youth, and Community Sciences programs statewide. Thanks very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Wendy, you're on.
Thank you, Brenda. I have to say I've never been called a rapid presenter, so I'm going to do my best and I will make it happen in 5 minutes. But thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to share some of the programs that successes that we do have in health and wellness. And I have to first start by saying a big thank you to all of our extension specialists for making all of these programs happen throughout the state. And as Brenda mentioned, in my time here with Extension, I've seen a ton of successful health and wellness programs, but two I'm going to highlight that Dr. Gutter even mentioned was Let's Walk Florida and a lifestyle intervention for weight management program, Rural Leap specifically. The first program is the Let's Walk Florida program, and that was developed by Dr. LaToya O'Neill, and she's an assistant professor and Extension health and wellness specialist at UF. And just to give you a little backstory on the Let's Walk Florida program, how it came about. So back in 2017, which seems like a really long time ago, there was a need identified for a statewide physical activity program. So in 2018, she did the research and developed the program with her team. And in 2019, it was piloted in 3 different counties. Then in 2020, well, we all know things changed. And Dr. Gutter mentioned this as well, that Dr. O'Neill and her team worked really hard and adapted her program to be completely virtual. 27 counties did pilot it, as I mentioned, in 2020, and it's ready for a statewide rollout in 2021. And Dr. O'Neill did want me to mention as well that the Let's Walk Florida is being translated into Spanish as well as adapted for families. So what's the goal of the program? It's to get people moving. So we all know that there are so many benefits for physical activity, implementing physical activity in our daily lives with reducing risk for several chronic diseases. And that's what this program is all about. Just get people moving to improve their health and wellness. It's a 10-week program, and participants could join either as an individual or through a group. There were 2 different tracks. The first track was health focused, which was for individuals who weren't currently active, just starting out, and the end goal for those folks would be 150 minutes of moderate physical activity. Then the fitness track for those who are already currently active, it was more of, just like it says, a fitness track, so improving their fitness. So aiming for 70 minutes per week of a vigorous activity. And what the Let's Walk Florida program tried to do was create a supportive environment. So in some counties, they had Facebook support groups. There were some that met via Zoom on a weekly or biweekly basis just to check in and provide support. And participants were asked to track their physical activity minutes, and they reported those online. So what the program features, and you can see Dr. O'Neill, she's in the hot pink on the slide. They received weekly e-guides, and each e-guide was about 4 pages long, and they would have health and wellness, nutrition information, and they also included different activities or exercises that they could complete with modifications as well, just to give folks different ideas of things that they could be trying, especially as gyms were closing, adaptations were needed. So to date, and this is as of last week, there were over 1,400 registrants, and the starting physical activity minutes, the average was 140. And then at the end of the 10-week program, again, as of last week, was 288 minutes. So that was a nice increase from the program, and again, all virtual. Other impacts that were reported, increased physical activity knowledge, increased engagement of leisure time, physical activity, as well as a lot of self-reported benefits, less stress, improved mood, and then one of my favorites, the intent to remain active. So I'm going to transition really quickly to try to stay in time. The second project is by program director was Dr. Michael Perry. He's the Dean of the College of Health and Health Professions at the University of Florida. And Dr. Perry brought 3 different treatment groups or weight management groups to our extension offices. The first one starting back in 2003, which is tours. It was focused on weight management for women. Then Rural Light, 2008 to 2013. And then the one I'm going to talk about today, Dr. Gutter mentioned previously, was the Rural Elite program, the Rural Lifestyle Eating and Activity program. All 3 that I just mentioned, they all had similar goals for the participants, which were to improve nutrition, increase physical activity, and we did that by using a pedometer, counting steps versus the minutes that we count in the Let's Walk Florida program. Managing weight, we've all probably been there at some point or another where we've lost weight, but keeping it off is the hard part. And then the 4th goal was to improve quality of life. So the program features, how it was developed is, well, not developed, but it was a 16-week in-person program. So individuals would come to the extension offices. There are 2 lifestyle coaches typically that met with them in a group setting, and we provided nutrition education, did a lot of problem solving, and goal setting or action planning toward the end of each lesson. And then at the end of that 16 weeks, how it worked out for the study, for Dr. Perry's study, is that those all participants were randomized into one of 3 groups. So they had a telephone counseling session, which is either individually or in a group setting, or they were an email only. So let's see what happened. Overall, there were 540 participants, and the telehealth that was delivered to the individuals was going to have the biggest impact of maintenance of weight loss, as well as the weight loss greater than the 10%. So we know 5 to 10% is going to reduce risk for different chronic diseases. So that was a big benefit. This was this chart. I don't know if you guys can see my arrow or not, but if you can, that first 4 months here, this is from Dr. Perry's article in the Journal of American Medical Association. So you can see this is the first part of the intervention, which was all in person that first 4 months. And then slowly there's an increase in weight. But if you notice that blue line, that's the in-person, or excuse me, the individual telehealth or the telephone counseling. The red line is going to be for the group phone counseling. So they did a pretty good job at maintaining that weight loss, even at 22 months. But again, the individual counseling did a little bit better. And then finally, this is not an exhaustive list, but just other programs that we do offer through Extension, the Elder Nutrition and Food Safety Program, toward permanent weight management, keeping the pressure down, take charge of your diabetes. We also participate or collaborate with the Center for Disease Control and Prevention with the National Diabetes Prevention Program, our Stress Buster program, and Smart Couples. And I think that is it. How'd I do, Brenda?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So Wendy shared information about many programs that are offered through our Family and Consumer Sciences programs. And some of these are offered in some of the counties in our district. And we've also made the connection between financial health with physical health as it pertains particularly to just stress management. But there are other aspects that are involved in that area. And so our next speaker is Lisa Leslie. She's an agent in Hillsborough County. And Lisa has been an agent since 1997. And her major responsibilities are in the development, implementation, teaching, and coordination of personal financial educational programs. And she has worked with a variety of entities, both nonprofit, for-profit, governmental agencies, and she does many virtual classes. She was one of the early starters for virtual education in our district. And she's going to share a little bit about some of the programs in family financial well-being that are currently being offered through Hillsborough County Extension. So Lisa.
Thank you, Brenda. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I'm here in Hillsborough County, and Michael went over a lot of what I'm going to talk about, so I'll go pretty quickly. One thing just to get us started is this graphic shows the components of financial well-being, and it of course starts with income. It has to exceed expenses. It's nice to have that emergency cash reserve, kind of the next step, the cushion that we saw so many folks. Some folks had it, some folks didn't when this whole pandemic started. And then saving and investing for future goals. And then, of course, wrapped around that is tax management, risk management, estate planning. So those are all the kind of things that we try to help people build those components of financial well-being when they come to our programs and engage in our programs in a variety of ways, which I'll talk about. So we want to help people make sound financial choices and improve their financial stability. We are very comprehensive. We can talk about everything from budgeting to estate planning. And some people say, well, Lisa, I don't need to learn about estate planning. I don't have a lot of assets, but that's especially for folks who have modest incomes, who have children, and that goes with the risk management as well. Are you cost effectively do you have insurance, life insurance in place that's cost effective? It pains me when I hear people that are spending a lot of money but don't have the proper insurance. And then our target audience is moderate to middle income. Now, when I say moderate, I mean very moderate. I partner closely with Hillsborough County Social Services, and we reach folks who are at less than 138% of poverty level, which we all know poverty level for a family of four is about 25,000. So that's pretty low. And then middle income. I really believe the struggling middle is where extension is uniquely qualified to help the folks who don't qualify for subsidies, but we can show them how to be cost effective. So again, we cover the gamut from folks who are, at risk populations to the struggling middle to pull them up those rungs and get those components of financial stability. We do it in a variety of ways. Back in the olden days, remember when we'd meet together, the group learning events, and boy, do I miss those. We do have the synchronous and the asynchronous. We have a class called Building Financial Stability that's online. The person can take it anytime they want to. We have asynchronous class, so that's asynchronous. And then we have webinars. They've been a real great way to reach people during the pandemic. We did topics like managing your investments in uncertain times, managing money in uncertain times. Even I was surprised that during this crisis time, people were interested in debt management. As Michael mentioned, we also have branched out into financial counseling and mentoring. We have agents who will meet one-on-one because a lot of times the true answer to somebody's question about what they should do is it depends on your particular situation. So it's good to start out with those broad events and then hone down to it. We have agents who have the accredited financial counselor designation, and we also have volunteer mentors, which I'll mention in just a minute. And then we also help, and we've been doing it for many years, tax preparation assistance. We have the volunteer income tax preparation sites where people will do it for you. And we have here in Hillsborough County, we do the FSA. We'll show you how, and we'll show you how. And that's a really important thing because it's really important. Even if you have somebody do your taxes, you need to understand your tax return. You need to understand your tax bracket. You need to understand a lot of different things that's all wrapped around. And I'll kind of get off the soapbox there for a minute. But anyway, we did that here and we went virtual. When we could no longer sit next to somebody and help them, we went virtual, and as a result, and because of the extended filing deadline, it wasn't until July this year, we were able to reach more people. So our plan going forward in 2021 is to offer both in person, well, hopefully in person, we'll see, but we're going to have ways to help people in the way that they need it, if they need it to have it done for them, or if they need to, we can show them how. As mentioned, as Michael mentioned, we have the Florida Master Money Mentor Program. These are community volunteers. They receive training. We just blended the training, so it's now both an online Canvas class and then hopefully someday in person. This time around, we did a combination blended of online and they could do the asynchronous class and get through that. And I'll tell you, the volunteers are a great way to extend reach. They help a lot of residents, but they also enjoy it. It's good. Volunteering is great, not only for the folks they serve, but it's great for the volunteers. It's really a way for them to engage in their community. As Michael mentioned, we do have programs for youth, experiential type programs that they love. One of these, and it was unfortunate we weren't able to do it because it was a living on my own, where they learn what it's like to be an adult, and the parents love it because they learn what it's like to be an adult and all that responsibility. Money in some counties, we have the Money Adventure Day camps. So a great way, and those you'll see in that one photo there is Charlie Policino. He's a 4-H agent, so lots of great programs that way. We do have lots of partnerships. There's just a few showing on the screen here. As I mentioned, we partnered with the Financial Planners Association early pandemic. We partner with a lot of government, nonprofit, local agencies to bring these programs and to help reach out to folks. And then just here, I'll leave with some success stories on the screen. It's just, we really try to reach people to increase their knowledge, but to help them improve their financial stability. Are they getting ready for retirement? I love the one there, debt free. Another one at the bottom, and gave us way too much credit, but because people do come with that intrinsic motivation, but saying thank you, got to the next level. So, and that's our goal, to help people achieve their financial goals, become more financially stable, and be able to help themselves. And with that, I will say thank you for the time and turn it over to you, Brenda.
Thanks. Moderators, can you open the mic for Nicole Walker in the Polk County group? And because we're a little bit ahead of time, I just wanted to bring your attention to the success story that's in your packet that is about Polk County on the Dining with Diabetes program, and Andrea Nicolai's effort there. It's all related to the same topic. And Nicole Walker, the County Extension Director in Polk County, was just going to add a few words about that.
Thanks, Brenda, for the opportunity. Just to highlight this program here in Polk County, we've had 2 referendums now that voters voted to have a half-cent sales tax that supports indigent healthcare throughout the county. So with those funds, the past several years, we've been able to contract between Polk County and University of Florida for funding our family consumer science agent, and an important part of her job is specifically reaching out to our indigent community. We've been able to expand some of that teaching also to include our county employees this past year. Specifically, this is the Dining with Diabetes program. So there are folks that are identified who do have high A1C percentages, and we ask them to be a part of this program, or invite them to be a part of the program, which is a 5-class series. There are 4 weekly classes and then a 5th follow-up class 3 months following the first 4 classes. So we really are grateful that we've been able to partner with the county, and specifically with our Health and Human Services Division, as well as our organizational employee development folks who have helped to organize those classes. So we're looking forward to seeing some really impactful data from those employee classes, as we've also seen from our indigent healthcare participants documented in the fact sheet that you have in your folders. So thanks, Brenda.
Thank you, Nicole. And then I would also like to just mention this past budget year, Hillsborough County has funded a couple of program assistants to expand their expanded food nutrition education program. The program assistants in Hillsborough, because they're not funded with federal money, the audience can be a little bit more loose with their audience. It's not regulated. And so we anticipate that we'll be able to share some really significant programmatic outcomes based on the additional work being done there in Hillsborough for nutrition education. So, and then Dr. Gutter, I'm going to bring you back and we'll have our Q&A and let you make your closing comments before Martha Cohen comes on. Thanks.
Thank you. I was worried my mic wasn't going to turn back on right in the nick of time. So thank you, Brenda. I wanted to just share a few kind of other things that were connected to some of our conversations, and also hit it close to home, some of the things that we've been doing. So 2 things I'd like to mention if I could, and that is, the importance of partnerships. We have spent an enormous amount of time over the last year or so really trying to build up our understanding of each other's roles in our local communities, really making sure that we all think about the health challenges that exist for our families and how we're coming together for those. A good example of this, at least at the state level, has been as we've looked at the challenges facing COVID-19 and really just testing in our migrant farm families, for example. We've worked really closely with county leaders, Department of Health, FDACS, and many others to think about how do we get the word out? How do we work together to improve the communication about where testing is available? How do we solve those challenges together? And so one of the things I wanted to point out is that part of the solutions that we're often looking for mean the commitment to having the conversation. Really reaching out and starting that engagement process with your local county director, engaging people like Brenda Rogers, engaging a lot of us so that we can bring all of those forces to bear. Lastly, I wanted to mention too that these conversations can be really challenging to have at a local level. How does everyone feel about health? How do we feel about public health issues? How do we feel about anything that we might be looking at as a community? And I'm sure Brenda's mentioned before our civic program. which is really focuses on facilitated conversations with local leaders and community stakeholders and others. And one of the things that they're really focusing on right now, in addition to issues of inequality, of natural resources use, is the public health questions. Helping communities start coming together and having values-driven conversations around what we really want to try and think about and prioritize. How do we get our community leaders to support and galvanize around those ideas? So part of this is, even though we've talked about a few ideas here, which hopefully are intriguing, I did want to just mention that there's some great next steps going forward. And fortunately, you know some of the people for whom you would want to begin those conversations. So Brenda, I really just wanted to mention those two and talk about that. As we think about the future and our ability to engage in challenge and addressing health in our communities, it's going to be an ongoing conversation, and I'm hoping that some of you will start thinking about how we start having those ongoing conversations. How do we think about getting the resources we need in our communities? We're sometimes a helpful part for that. Brenda certainly mentioned probably in the past our opportunities and abilities to work together to get pilot funding, to try out different things that we might do in our counties for a few years to see, are we able to make a difference this way? So I do want to think about sometimes that even if we don't always know a permanent solution, we do know solutions that we want to try together, and to think about how we build some of those into the future as well. So Brenda, I think our next speaker is about ready, and so let me turn it over back to you. And I'm certainly glad to continue to take questions at any point if they come up. I'll certainly be on for the duration, ma'am.
Okay, so our transition now, we're going to move into our environmental section. And for those of you who have joined us since the beginning of our presentation, I will remind you that we are recording our presentation. Our next speaker is Martha Cohen, who is a tenured professor of architecture in the College of Design, Construction, and Planning at the University of Florida. She's also the director of the Center for Hydrogenerated Urbanism. She received her degrees from the University of the Republic in Uruguay and Cambridge University. Before coming to the University of Florida in 2003, she served as she directed for 20 years her architecture and urban design practice in Latin America and taught at the University of the Republic. She's got several other places where she was visiting professor around the world. And since 2015, she's also represented the United States as a senior partner in the UNESCO Chair in Sustainable Urban Quality and Culture, with whom she has jointly organized 5 international workshops on sea level rise and disaster recovery. 3 of these workshops have been in connection with Puerto Rico Restart, an interdisciplinary collaboration between UF, the universities of Puerto Rico, and local stakeholders to harness international expertise in design, innovation, research, and visionary projects to face the challenges posed by hurricanes Irma and Maria in 2018 and earthquakes in 2019 and the coronavirus pandemic in 2020 for a sustainable future. So Dr. Cohen's going to come and share with us some work that she's been doing with Extension and with counties in Florida. So Martha, we're glad you're with us today. Please share what you have to share with us.
Thank you very much. I would like first to recognize Heidi Redonovich and Bradley Burbaugh, with whom we worked. Heidi has branched out to reach us in our College of Design, Construction, and Planning. And we have expanded our engagement with the state of Florida very pointedly through these collaborations. So what I would like to say is, in spite of that very big presentation and biography that Brenda said, we are very much engaged with local endeavors, especially in the north of Florida. We act through this Center for Hydrogenerated Urbanism that I co-direct with Nancy Clark. And we look with our research associates into the problems of our contemporary environmental conditions in Florida. What I would like to say is that our training takes us to think 50 years ahead, is to say, as architects, we are not designing for today, we are designing for the future. So it's a very big effort to actually try to foresee what's going to be coming, what are the trends, what are the needs, what are the desires of the population and the authorities and the organizations ahead of us. So we took this challenge with the Clay County to actually reimagine a rural fair facility that was not being used thoroughly anymore because we have evolved into other modalities of communications, and we try to reimagine its future. So this is a view of what we had as a starting point. Excellent facilities, but with a lot of potential, but with an uncertain future. So we started looking into what would be the catchment area of the population. We looked at the variations in traffic patterns, the activities that were developed in the fair, adjacent fair in other places, in other counties, even in other states, and started understanding what would be the possibility of introducing innovation and leadership in this facility for the future development of the northern part of Florida. So we looked at the strengths of the position, its weaknesses, its opportunities, and thought that it really offered a lot of potential. Okay, so we did a master plan, all this working very collaboratively with our county and IFAS partners, a plan for the future. So we did a comprehensive proposal that included, buying adjacent land, creating new programs that will address innovation and sustainability that could be expanded to the future. So it covers all the levels. The advancement of the slides is very slow, so I do what I can. But I don't know, it's here it is, and I really want to show you like final images of what we are able to produce as elements that will help the county, and it did, I think, it happened that way. Vision the possibilities, and therefore be able to create. It doesn't advance, Brenda. I'm sorry to say the presentation is kind of slow. So visioning and being able to monetize in a way the future possibilities of the place and ask for the adequate funding. I think this.
Our moderators are going to move your slides for you.
Okay.
The screen's frozen.
Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't. So just a run through. I mean, we create new uses for the existing buildings, focalizing on the creation of a place where people want to come, want to meet. We think that beyond this COVID situation now, people are eager to socialize and bring the kids to move on, Brenda, to a place of encounter that will be beyond the seasonal fair, into a year-round generator of revenue for the county. We retrofitted the buildings for social use and conditioned shaded spaces for fairs and markets and gatherings and children's play. These are just examples of other places, but what we tried to do was really use paint and ideas just to reuse what was by now very sparsely used facility. We're thinking of creating a location where events could happen, retrofit the grounds into educational landscapes and usable pavilions. And finally, an auditorium, open air auditorium that is not that expensive to make and that will attract musicians and events, but also the dissemination of new information and partnership with cultural events as well as technological events. So we would very much like to expand this partnership with other areas of the state that might make good use of the generation of ideas by researchers or professors in planning and architecture, but it's also a great way of engaging our students with a real Florida, with a real, shall we say, conditions that we experiment now as the changing climate and the changing social conditions are pushing us to the future with a vision. Thank you. We are open to questions.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
Thank you very much.
I think that open air auditorium was prepared before its time of popularity. It's probably more important now than ever.
Yes, we didn't have COVID at that time, but we have a climate that really allows us to have outdoor events, and we should take advantage of that. I think the main thing is a public facility like this can become a beacon in communications, in transmission of innovation on ideas, on alternative energies, health solutions, and all the rest of the possible topics.
Martha, we do have one question in the chat, and the question is, are there other specific types of programs in addition to architecture that would fall under the center's purview? I'm guessing that's the last word.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, we have a team that works together with us from other departments. We have economists, landscape architects, we have environmental engineers, and we can assemble any team according to the need of the specific research. Not only from our college, which has building construction, interior design, and landscape architecture, but also from the engineering school or the Levin College of Law. we have partnered with many of them.
Okay, other questions?
Well, thank you for the
Martha
opportunity.
and team, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for sharing your work. We look forward to learning more about your center and opportunities for engagement with our counties.
Thank you very much. I look forward to that.
Okay. Our next group of speakers will be talking about the UF Center for Coastal Solutions and Introduction and Research Engagement in the Southwest District. We have two presenters. Betty Stogler is a Sea Grant Extension Agent in Charlotte County since 2004. She does extensive work in marine and natural resource educational programs that are focused on sustainable coastal communities and habitat water quality issues. Her programs are in-depth and a lot of focus, but most recently, Betty has served as a liaison with NOAA for the algae bloom and on the algae bloom task force. And so Betty's going to do the introduction to this presentation. And then Dr. David Kaplan is an associate professor in the Department of Environmental Engineering Sciences within the Engineering School of Sustainable Infrastructure and Environment at the University of Florida. And his research is on watershed, and he manages the ecology lab. And Dr. Kaplan is filling in for Dr. Angelini, who happens to be advising a PhD student who is defending their research this afternoon at exactly this moment. And so we appreciate Dr. Kaplan for filling in, for Dr. Angelini for providing the presentation, and for Betty for getting it all coordinated. So Betty, we're going to start with you, and then you can pass off to Dr. Kaplan.
Great, thanks, Brenda. Can everyone hear me? Hopefully. So today we've heard the term connections a few times, and we know how important that is. And so I really wanted to share the connection that is relevant to today, and that is Dr. Christine Angelini. Christine is in the engineering school. She is also the director for the brand new Center for Coastal Solutions, also at the University of Florida, and she's a Florida Sea Grant affiliate. And she has a really strong interest in Southwest Florida. So her and I have gotten together several times to talk about potential projects, ongoing projects, and to do some brainstorming. And in one of these brainstorming sessions, she brought Brian Logan, who is with SAS, and I'll talk about what that is in a second, to talk about some potential projects related to water quality in Southwest Florida. So I'm going to give you just kind of a brief overview. I'm going to turn it over to David, who's going to put it into the perspective of the Center for Coastal Solutions, and then loop back around on how that center is going to engage in the future. Wrong button. Okay, so SAS, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it is a robust data management platform. It has amazing statistical and data visualization capabilities. So it's often the software of choice for scientists when they're dealing with really large data sets, and often because it can also work really well with disparate data. SAS right now is involved in a water quality analytics project, which is being funded through a legislative initiative. And that is a reoccurring line item to do water quality research. And for that, they are working with IFAS and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So they've identified and they've begun working on two projects. I've listed them on the bottom of the screen. I'm not going to really go into detail on those two, but the IFAS project is related to well water and pulling together some data sets, these large siloed data sets, and cleaning them. And then the the Florida Department of Environmental Protection project is related to impaired water bodies and prioritizing those. But they wanted more projects. And so, so we were brainstorming what potential projects might they want to do in the future. And I was thinking that since local governments are kind of on the hook for implementing impaired waters rules and TMDLs, that it would be really neat if we could find a way to use already collected and paid for water quality information to answer new questions that would benefit local governments. So today is just to plant the seed to see if there's maybe some interest. Also, what to get you thinking about what kind of water quality data is available, where it might be housed, if it's within the local government, if it's at a partner or agency or organization, and then who might, from a county perspective, be involved and what kind of questions you might have. And from here, I'm going to turn it over to David to finish out the presentation.
Thanks, Betty. I'm going to try to take control here. Hopefully that worked. All right, y'all can hear me?
Yep.
All right, excellent. So thanks so much, Betty. And yeah, sorry that you get the low budget version of the center from me instead of Dr. Angelini, but we're partners in a lot of projects and love working with her and many colleagues across the campus to basically try to figure out this very challenging problem of coastal water quality and other coastal hazard issues. So I'm going to introduce the center. Really, the goals for me today are introduce this Center for Coastal Solutions, describe a little bit about why we're interested in Southwest Florida, and then maybe describe a little bit about this partnership with SAS and with Sea Grant and hopefully with folks in IFAS and the broader community. All right, so it's probably no surprise to everyone here. Of course, Florida's coastal environment is one of its best resources, both for our residents and for tourism and for our economy. But there are a number of sort of challenges, sometimes blooming into crises in our coastal communities, and they vary from red tide in coastal areas to blue-green algae in inland waters. Sometimes those two threats coming together, and we're a little bit behind on the science of how those two exactly exacerbate each other. But certainly harmful algal blooms have been in the news in recent years, and I think even right now in Southwest Florida, there's a maybe bloom coming off the Sanibel Island, so have to keep our eyes on that. Additionally, pathogen outbreaks, and these can be things that threaten, both economic output like fisheries and shell fisheries, as well as, of course, tourism and threaten human health. So something that the center really focuses on is connecting environmental degradation and human health impacts. Of course, those all have economic ramifications as well. And then, of course, things like sunny day flooding, sea level rise. From an ecological and drinking water perspective, saltwater intrusion can be a real problem. Southeast Florida has been the main place where that focus has been, but really advancing all over the state, where basically low-lying areas are getting inundated more frequently by less extreme events as sea level is rising. And of course, as we manage our water differently. As everyone probably has read about or perhaps living day to day, these environmental crises are increasing in frequency. We expect the future to be potentially even more challenging in terms of both development of the Florida's inland and coastal environment and the threats that are the challenges that provides for water quantity and quality, as well as climate change impacts into the future. And so the idea behind this center is that currently we're responding to these crises quite often in a very reactionary form. If there's a red tide, we close the beach. Sometimes we bring out the bulldozers and truck up the dead wildlife, and we're very much in a reactive mode. The challenge for all of us as scientists, as well as certainly as extension, as county representatives, state representatives, is to think about ways that we can advance our basically proactive ability to address these problems. Right now, we think there are three unknowns that are kind of leaving us less able to be proactive. One would be understanding the root cause or source of many of these hazards. We know, for example, that red tide blooms offshore, but then exactly how long, when it comes on shore, how long it stays, how persistent, and when it dissipates is still a scientific and engineering question we're looking to answer. Are making hazards better or worse. Even things like how we can restore the environment to improve sort of the natural mitigation capacity of our coastal areas. And then how all of these hazards are affecting people, ecosystems, and the economy. So these are sort of like the gaps right now, especially thinking about widespread spatial and temporal information about these three gaps. And so we're getting this environmental health and economic degradation because our responses are after the fact. The idea is, I'll give this joke to Christine, can we turn the tide and build a more proactive coastal hazard response? And of course, that's really at the center of this Center for Coastal Solutions. We think that there are transformational technologies, both physical technologies and software technologies, bridging, advanced physics for sensors, as well as advanced computational for AI. And what we're hoping to do is advance scientific and engineering solutions that are very much in tune with stakeholder needs and desires. And that's one reason why we've been branching out and why we're here today. So what is the Center for Coastal Solutions at UF? So this is our mission: leverage innovative technologies, AI, and workforce training, multi-sector collaboration to enable communities, the state, and nation to basically figure out when something like a coastal water quality hazard is going to occur, and hopefully also how to mitigate, how to prevent it to improve quality of life and economic health. So that's a big mission, and kind of drill down into what does it look like as a system. And there's a lot of sort of parts to this diagram, but to say that the goals of the center are really to build a next generation sensing coastal monitoring network. And that means sensors in the water, that means drones, both aerial and aquatic. It means remote sensing. It means a number of citizen scientist opportunities from commercial fishermen all the way to citizens at the beach. And then building sort of large scale physical and
Dr. Kaplan, we're going to have to wrap up just the next couple minutes. Thank you.
All right. So it's a big fancy thing that we're trying to do, and we're hopefully not going to do it in a setting that is lacking context locally. So where we're going to launch this next summer, or this coming summer, is in Southwest Florida here, down by Sanibel Island. And what we're looking to do is we have a lot of partnerships already, including agencies and companies and other universities. But what we're here to do is try to basically get the idea out there and solicit your participation in a workshop for Spring 21 to basically ask, what kind of underutilized data are out there in Southwest Florida? What products are most needed in order to help you better support decision making? And so the last thing I'll say is here's contact information for Dr. Angelini and myself. We have we're kind of ground floor right now, and we'd love to get some partnership with new folks out in this specific region. So thanks. Sorry for going a bit long.
It's all right. Thank you so much. And the slides will be provided. All the presentations are provided to our audience today, and county partners, you can always connect with these resources through your county extension directors. Our next presentation is by Jeffrey Gellerman, who is the county extension director for Pinellas County. And JP does a variety of educational programs focused on health and well-being, low impact and development and economic development. And JP is a Florida native. He's earned his master's degree in public administration and a bachelor's degree in political science and criminology. And he's been with the University of Florida since 2005. And during that time, he's worked in multiple program areas, including growth management, community development, efficient community sea grant, and 4-H youth development. And he provides roles in all of these areas as county extension director. He is going to share today a little bit about a program that is being kicked off in Pinellas County in cooperation or collaboration with, I think it's 23 municipalities that Pinellas has. And so JP, please take it from here.
Okay, can everybody hear me today? Am I good? Okay, thank you. And I'd just like to say the hardest thing for an extension agent to do is talk concisely. I got 5 minutes, and that's really hard to put all this into 5 minutes, but thank you in advance. I'm going to talk to you about the Integrated Vegetative Management Program, or IVM. It's a city-county UF IFAS collaboration success story. It really is. But before I get started, I really want to thank Mr. Paul Kazi, our Parks and Recreation Resources Director, for outstanding support and helping navigate through this project. All right, so in December 2018, basically there was a large litigation lawsuit out in the state of California that implicated an organophosphate, a Roundup or a glyphosate, the most widely used herbicide in the world right now, in the diagnosis of an individual's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And pretty quickly, this brought to the forefront of the public discourse concerns surrounding what is being sprayed, how is it being sprayed, why is it being sprayed on public lands, Is it affecting me, my children, my pets that are at playgrounds, dog parks, and just utilizing public spaces? Pretty quickly, and I think very correctly, our county administrator and county city managers around the community thought that, started to see that we needed to collaborate to answer these questions, because our folks in the field, our administrators, and even elected officials were being asked these same questions. And we really needed a collaborative answer to provide them. So very quickly, the thought was that if 24 municipalities in a county are all working on the same question, that's a lot of duplicity of efforts, a lot of wasted resources, especially since vegetation in St. Petersburg and Dunedin is pretty close to being the same approach. So we put together an integrated vegetative management committee to look at how we can do these things. We met for 6 meetings over a period of 5 months, and the membership was created from members of the county, the municipalities, and the University of Florida, IFAS. The group was provided direction on action items to be developed in order to meet the intent and purpose of the committee, which was to reduce the amount of herbicides applied to public spaces effectively in environmentally sustainable fashion. It focused on prevention. Everybody on that working group really thought that, and I think correctly so again, when you're looking at a Brazilian pepper that's 1 inch tall, it's a lot easier to deal with than when it's 30 feet tall. It also has to be cost effective. I know we all have unlimited resources, right, and all these different departments and municipalities, but we really want to make sure that there's a lot of different approaches to vegetation management, but it has to be cost effective. And we were also certain that over time, working together collaboratively was going to gain efficiency the longer it's implemented. So the findings of the committee was that education and a coordinated approach to vegetation management was really focal, a center point. We wanted to make sure that the approaches of all these different cities was somehow collaborated or somehow coordinated, and we weren't confusing the public even more after this than before. List of available resources in a convenient and usable form. It's important to know what's in your toolbox to be able to use it, right? I love working on cars. My favorite tool is a sledgehammer and a blowtorch, but that's the last tool that I want to use. I want to make sure I use everything else in the toolbox before that. So we provided a large document to list out all of the resources that the folks in the field have available. Going on, develop and refine additional products was important, in communication and interaction of the local participants. We can share information, we can share successes and even failures. We can learn from each other very quickly and more appropriately. The integrated vegetative management matrix is that toolbox that we were talking about. Okay, it was that toolbox we were talking about. It's broken into 5 methods with 11 different control methods. It starts with prevention again, and it works its way up to the last tool you're going to use. That blowtorch, so to speak, would be herbicides and chemicals. And this document is broken down with all the pros and cons, so folks in the field have a very good idea of what they're using and why they're using it. Moving forward, we want a lot of with the digitization of our courses. We want to make sure that we can reach as many folks as we possibly can. Video saves staff time and transportation time, and we want to continue reaching out to our stakeholders for their input and their ideas on how we can make this better.
Thank you, JP. We're going to go ahead to our next speaker, and then we may save our questions for the end. So our next speaker is Dr. Abby Tierna, who is the Water Resources Extension Agent in Sarasota County. She's a freshwater ecologist by training who specializes in issues such as stormwater, pond management, water conservation, drinking water, and watershed water quality. And Abby's going to share about information about a new program for extension with a Healthy Pond Certification Program. Abby, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm not going to take too much of your time because I got 5 minutes, but I'm so happy to be able to talk to you about the Healthy Pond Certification Program. So today I'm going to talk to you about what is the program and why we decided to promote this program and create it, all about the program and the outcomes. So first, why a Healthy Ponds program? Well, a lot of you know that there are over 76,000 stormwater ponds throughout the state of Florida, and they are the #1 best management practice for dealing with stormwater pollution. A lot of local governments, though, are finding themselves on the hook for the inability for them to actually live up to their expectations of delivering 80 to 90% pollution load reduction. And so now that local governments have to deliver that, there's a lot that needs to be done, because unfortunately these stormwater ponds, while they are concentrated in number, it doesn't matter the concentration, you're going to have a reduction in water quality in the receiving body. So what you can see on that map of Florida is just all the impaired waters. And so it doesn't really matter about the concentration of stormwater ponds. And that's because they're largely left in the landscape unattended to, and sometimes even neglected. And that's what the second picture shows, which is a good thing, because now we know that we have a high potential for these low-hanging fruit to improve them, so that we can get the water quality functions and the habitat functions that we need out of them. And part of doing that is changing the perceptions, which is what the third picture is all about. So we need to change the perceptions among residents, and then give the tools needed to the managers to help manage these in a more integrated pest management approach, a holistic approach. So a healthy pond, everybody wants to know what a healthy pond is. And for the purposes of this, a healthy pond balances the inputs put into the pond and maximizes pond function. So what you can see here is the inputs such as lawn clippings, plant trimmings, herbicide, fertilizer, domestic animal droppings. All of that needs to be internally cycled and then produced with and balanced with native plants, littoral plants, high dissolved oxygen, or at least enough to allow for thriving native fish, and good algae. And so that is a really important change of perception, is that plants are an integral role in stormwater pond management. And when you have plants and you can balance those inputs by reducing some of the inputs and having native plants, then you can increase the function of these systems to provide erosion control, which is really important, to increase wildlife habitat, water quality improvements, and then the things that they were designed for, like stormwater flow rate control, volume reduction, and all that will lend to increased property value of the neighborhood. So the Healthy Pond Certification Program was developed with this idea that we can improve these 76,000 water bodies by providing an evidence-based course for owners and stormwater pond managers. It's also a clearinghouse for research, because across the university on stormwater ponds, but there was no clearinghouse, one place where you could get all of the conclusions and results and then share that with the stormwater pond managers. So this is one way of doing that, but it's not just a one-way street. So it's also a way for stormwater pond managers to connect with each other and discuss, and then also provide feedback back to the researcher. So there are 20 authors, and 18 of them come from the university. 2 of them are outside, and they contribute content on integrated pest management, biocontrol, fish health, geology, ecology, and so much more. I think uniquely it also talks about the human dimension of stormwater pond management in at least 2 chapters. So it's a very thorough representation of what is needed in order to enhance these pond systems. So we're looking to measure success by looking at the reduction in chemical use, which we know that better pond management, even incrementally, will reduce the number of chemical applications going into these systems, which will then reduce the number of reoccurring problems. We're hoping that managers who take our course will utilize pond management resources. And then by doing all of this, they're going to increase the positive interactions that they have with their clients. So the program is 120 hours and is distributed over 8 weeks. 7 weeks are online through Canvas course. And then the 8th week is a field day. The field day is a half day 4-hour training where you work hands-on to look at water quality testing, buffer zone management, muck and aeration within the stormwater pond. And then you get your certificate of completion. So for the pilot offering, which was also a external review, so we had all the people who registered and participated give us a very lengthy review of the program so we can improve it. We had 25 registered and they were all invited, and we had 3 on the waiting list. 13 were actually active, meaning that they completed the online portion, but 10 were only available to attend the half-day field day. And so 10 actually graduated. There was only one participant who was new to the pond management field. The vast majority of them had between 5 and 12 years of experience, and then we had 4 that had over 20 years experience. So we got really great feedback about the course. Of these 10 graduates, we did find success. So remember those measures of success. 7 of them are going to use these new resources to help them better communicate with their clients. So they're going to improve that relationship. And then 3 of them are going to incorporate water testing into their business through that hands-on experience that they received at the field day, looking at low-cost strategies for doing so. And so some of the feedback we got was that it was just a really fantastic course. It was very comprehensive, and it was one of the best CEU trainings that they've ever been to. We were able to give them 240 hours of CEUs. So I just wanted to tell you that our next offering is March 2021, and we look forward to having stormwater managers, anybody who works on stormwater ponds or stormwater canals within local governments attend. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Okay, we are going to hold the questions and answers till the end of the presentation, and we're going to move right ahead with our actually our final speaker of the day, but a new topic area. And Dr. Krista Court is an assistant professor in the Food and Resource Economics Department at the University of Florida, and she's also the director of the UF IFAS Economic Impact Analysis Program, which conducts regional economic analysis for funded research projects, industry organizations, and governmental agencies, analyzing a wide range of activities and industries. And I'm not going to read the rest of her introduction, but I know that you'll be interested in hearing from her. She is the person in IFAS that coordinates all of the input from our field faculty as they do assessments following hurricanes, freezes, the impact of COVID on agriculture. And she's going to share a little bit about her work, the work of the agents in the field that are providing the data for her work, and how that work is used. So Dr. Court, please take it away.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you for everybody that's here today. And I've only been able to attend about half of it, but I myself have learned a lot of different things about what people do. So I'm very excited and hope that everybody's getting the same thing out of this meeting. So even similar to others, I'm a little bit worried about making it all the way through all of this material in 10 minutes. I've pulled several things from several presentations that are each about 30 to 45 minutes in length. So I might even surprise myself with what slide is coming next, but hopefully it will give you the overview to pique your interest, and absolutely reach out to me anytime if you want additional details or have questions that we don't get to at the very end. Very brief overview. One of the things that we do here in the Economic Impact Analysis Program is provide an overview of the data that come out annually on Florida's food system. We actually do agriculture, natural resources, and food, an annual report. And I can tell you that growers and fishers in Florida literally cover the A to Z in commodity production. It's estimated that we produce 200 to 300 different commodities, and there's some form of agriculture present in every single county. So that food system is also an important economic contributor to the state's economy. Just production alone, there's $10 billion in annual sales and 137,000 plus people directly involved in agriculture, forestry, and fishing production. If we step forward down the supply chain in processing food and food-related product processing and manufacturing, there's $31 billion in sales, 76,000 more jobs. And in food distribution, that would include both wholesale and retail, things like grocery stores and restaurants. There's an additional $101 billion in sales and 1.2 million jobs just directly in those industries, and we're not even accounting yet for things like multiplier effects. So, when we talk about disaster impact analysis, I like to make sure that, there's that introduction so that we know exactly what's at stake. So there's several different types of disasters that we experience in the U.S. as well as in the state of Florida. Since 1980, the United States alone has experienced 275 what are termed billion-dollar natural disasters, resulting in a total cost of nearly $2 trillion. So these are only the number of disasters that have resulted in at least $1 billion or more of damages, and that's not just agricultural damages, but including things like buildings and other industries in the economy. Florida alone has experienced $5 to $10 billion in economic losses annually resulting from these types of natural disasters. And that puts us on par with Texas as the state that experiences the highest dollar value of economic losses from these disasters. If we look at different types of disaster event types by year, it looks as though the billion-dollar disasters are increasing in number and cost as we go from 1980. This graph stops at 2018. But it's important to remember that this doesn't necessarily indicate that the disasters themselves are increasing in number or intensity. Some of them, the research is showing that they potentially are with climate variation, but it just means occasionally that there's more way of these disasters. There's larger cities or more agricultural products, and the losses are more severe when even a disaster of the same size or intensity hits. If we look at these, again, this is only these billion-dollar weather and climate disasters. If we look at frequency mapping from 1980 to 2018, you can see that the southeast states appear on the higher end of frequency in every type of disaster monitored. So unfortunately, the state of Florida does not appear as in the color white on any of these different types of disasters that they monitor. So, when I first got here, I arrived in 2016, so it was just prior to the year that we experienced Hurricane Irma. And when Hurricane Irma came through, we were tasked with, we were sitting in a faculty meeting saying, what can our department do? Is there anything that we can help with now that this large event has hit almost the entire state? And we set off to look at what types of agricultural assets were at risk and collect some information on, what are those losses, since the agriculture sector is not, it's not a sector that was of particular interest in any of the state-of-the-art tools that are out there to measure damages and losses after disasters. So we, tried to collect, what are the assets that we do have some baseline information on. Standing annual and perennial crops, things like live animals, forest inventory, nursery, greenhouse structures, any type of capital investment, farm machinery, facilities, and even research extension and teaching facilities. And the few that we do have some information on, we were able to start putting a program together to be able to quickly assess these losses and damages after a disaster. Those would be the things, the standing annual and perennial crops with some information on baseline where live animals are located, forest inventory, and then some packing houses and processing facilities, as well as at least the IFAS or Florida research extension and teaching facilities. One of the things that we do when a particular disaster hits, so as Brenda mentioned, we can do this for any type of disaster, but we have the most experience with these tropical cyclone events in the recent past, is a geospatial mapping approach to crop product loss assessment. So we have and we keep updated a geospatial crop acreage database. We take information from both the USDA NASS cropland data layer that's at the national level, as well as some information from FDEX that they put together based on an irrigation database. We also can quickly put together geospatial event data. So the small picture that you're seeing here is the wind swath pattern of Tropical Storm Eta. And we can overlay those two things to know exactly what crop acreages were affected by a particular disaster. Probably most importantly is the information that we're getting from the field, from extension faculty, from extension agents, and even this year we started to open that up and take information from producers themselves on what exactly was happening to specific commodities in specific areas. And then again, we keep some baseline information on the value per acre for different affected crops. And all of this put together will provide us with some region-wide estimates of crop losses. So we don't want to say, only what has happened to farmer A's tomato crop. We want to be able to say, what's that region-wide or statewide number for the state of Florida? If I give you a brief look at what we've done recently, a quick estimate on what we call a credible range of losses for Tropical Storm Eta. Again, we take that geospatial crop acreage data, we adjust that for season. One of the things I didn't mention before is that not all agricultural activities are taking place year round. So we adjust for what happens to be in the field at the time of the event. Geospatial event data from both the National Hurricane Center on wind speed and the National Weather Service on precipitation. And then crop damage field estimates that some of that information is coming from damage estimates from past disaster events in the state of Florida, as well as some early information that's provided by the extension agents and producers right after the storm. And then the value per acre for affected crops, most of them we can place a 5-year average from some information coming from the USDA. And when that's not available for specific commodities, then we'll use a commodity group average or perhaps economic data on the value of a specific industry. And this particular event, we had a relatively wide-ranging, credible range of $85 to $320 million. And part of that is because, similar to a couple past events, it was largely a precipitation event and not a wind speed event, but there was the potential for this lower tropical storm force winds. It had affected such a large portion of the peninsula of Florida that there was either going to be a lot of very small amount of loss or potentially a larger amount of loss in a smaller area. So we're refining that number now to place a final number on it. What happens to this information after we collect it all? This is an example from Hurricane Michael. We put out a report in October, just a few weeks after the actual event, on the economic losses for Florida agriculture resulting from Hurricane Michael. That feeds pretty quickly into an FDEX report that goes to the federal government, again, within a few weeks after the event, and then goes through a longer legislative process on in the U.S. Senate Committee on Appropriations in May of 2019. Was able to incorporate some farm disaster assistance and forestry restoration program.
Dr. Court, we're down to just another minute or two.
Okay, I'm almost done. Just a very brief look at what we did for COVID-19. Everybody is somewhat familiar with how COVID-19 has affected the food system at this point, but food service industry demand went way down. A large portion of Florida's production goes into hospitality and food service industries, and it caused a major disruption to our food system, especially in that March-April period when things were shutting down. So we retailored that survey that we have for natural disasters for COVID-19. We got very good participation from producers, especially in the agricultural operations where we had over 700 responses. And we were able to put together some charts pretty quickly about how different commodity groups were being affected. And you can see here that in all of the commodity groups, there were some operations that were shut down or experienced total losses of 100%, and some that were actually doing better. It might be that folks in their area were looking for a more local source of food. But overall, on average, every commodity was experiencing losses of some type. We were able to put those data, look at what are the total annual sales revenues for these commodity groups, how much of that sales revenue do they typically make in this March to mid-May period, to determine output at risk, use that along with those percentage losses, and estimate $894 million in losses for the state of Florida just from that shutdown in March to mid-May period. The final thing I wanted to note is that one thing that we still have going is an effort to collect stories behind the data. So we have 26 researchers and agents from IFAS from several different departments and programs, as well as 7 faculty from Florida Gulf Coast University. And we're soon to bring online a few faculty members at Florida A&M University to do more in-depth interviews and see exactly what was going on. And you can find more information about all of these efforts at that web address that I have there at the bottom, and I've included it on the last slide as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, now's the time for you. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat or raise your hand. I'm going to introduce Dr. Thomas Abriza, who's our Senior Associate Dean and Associate Director of University of Florida Extension. And starting in January, he will have his second round as interim dean while we search for a dean. Dr. Abriza has been with IFAS for 30 years, and those first 13 years he was located in Immokalee at the Southwest Florida Research and Education Center. He's a science professor and is a professor in the Soil and Water Sciences Department at the University of Florida. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and let Dr. Abriza make a few comments, and we'll watch for questions in the chat. Here's Dr. Abriza, and then we'll wrap it up.
Thank you, Brenda. It's been quite a day. Congratulations to you for packing so much into 2 hours plus. I'm not sure if you could have done a better job at that, but certainly a lot of stuff that we've learned and I've learned over the last couple of hours. I want to go back to something Heidi said when she was speaking. She said the university is changing over time, and other parts of the university are much more familiar with extension now, and that is definitely true. You know, one aspect of this is, you know, what I call the new faculty members. One of my tasks as Dr. Place's right-hand man is interviewing faculty candidates for assistant professor positions. And an evolution I've noticed over the past 10 or 12 years is that the faculty, regardless of what their appointment is, research, teaching, extension, whatever, they want to see their work realized and used in the communities, you know, where it can be, not just sitting in a research paper on the shelf, but, you know, how can the citizen community use what I'm doing to, you know, to better the state. And so you got that attitude out there now amongst a lot of our young faculty. So they're out there and they want to help. Brenda Rogers talked about talking to Charlie Verena and asking him when the first gateway was, in August 7th, 2009. That was my first year as interim of what I'm doing now. And Charlie and I were good friends, and so I attended that one, you know, and all the ones subsequently. But the key point there is Charlie had a concept that's been turned into reality. Back then, it was all about what's possible or what could we do. Charlie would say something like, if a county wants to build a battleship, we're going to find somebody at UF that is going to help them build a battleship. You know, just in an abstract way of, you know, this engagement, visionary kind of thing. And now we've gone past the concept to reality, as what we've heard today. Things are really happening out there, and we've got proof of concept that this works. And so that's the legacy, I think, that Nick Place leaves behind because of his investment in doing this, not only in the Southwest District, but some of the other districts have been looking at it as well. And so we know it works, and let's keep the momentum going. So, you know, if anyone's worried about what would happen to this effort, UF engagement, after Dean Place leaves, not to worry. You know, he said we're not letting our foot off the gas, and, you know, if I can help it, we're not going to let our foot off the gas. And whoever the next dean is, you know, in 6 months from now, you know, I can't see why they would want to not continue something like this that is starting to really show the fruits of the labor, you know, since Charlie started this back in 09. One of the things I noticed, you know, just listening to the talks today, were kind of related to the financial aspect of things. You know, and, you know, we're in the age of COVID here. You know, a lot of people have lost their jobs. You know, revenue coming into governments has suffered for sure. And, you know, we're all to the point where saving money is not a bad idea. And that was a theme that, I was kind of realizing through Michael Gutter's talk and Betsy Shankman's talk and Wendy Lynch and Lisa Leslie, about different aspects of what we do in these programs really helps either people or entities save money. Prevention is much cheaper than trying to cure something, in the case of, health, and learn how to manage finances, better can certainly help. And you saw some of the quotes there, I think that Lisa had put up there about what they do. So if it's not a good time to learn about how to manage money and save it now, I don't know when it is. This is the time, and we've got the capability to do that both directly and indirectly. There's also the environmental side, that some of our folks talked about, and you can't exactly measure that in dollars and cents, but it's just as important to the state indirectly in terms of the economic benefits that good environmental management provides. You think about the engineering aspect, and sometimes people say, well, you might think that, are you competing with the private sector? And I think the answer is no. I mean, you've got engineering firms out there who are doing things, but what we do in academic engineering and academic environmental quality work is not the same as what is done in the private sector. I think it's testing concepts, proving concepts, trying new things that ultimately the private sector will adopt. But somebody's got to try it first, and we have the ability to do that. Anything that we do in the counties, really, when you look at the cost of it or the cost associated with it, it should be cheaper than what you might otherwise experience. So there's that aspect of it too. Last thing I'll mention is, I think when they're talking about financial management, the ability for us to pivot from face-to-face to virtual, and our agents have done that very well. And with COVID still not being fixed yet, and not for a while, virtual is going to be a major choice, and our people are really good at that. So virtual programming should not affect UF engagement at all. And someday we'll all look back on this as history, as the vaccines hopefully take hold and people take them, and we get out of this pandemic, maybe in 2022 or late 2021. So as you've watched all this today, maybe some light bulbs have gone off in your heads, and that would be good. And if you want present some ideas in your counties, I would suggest starting with your county extension director. Heidi is still there. Heidi is like the dating game person. She does the matchmaking up at our level, but a good way to get your message through on some help that you might want to look at would be through your CED, and then we have this chain of command that will get the message up to where it needs to get. So like I said, I hope that some of the light bulbs have gone on in some of your heads, and we'll see some progress there. And with that, Ms. Rogers, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Abriza. So we don't have any questions in the chat and don't see any hands up at this time. So I will say that if you do have questions, your county extension director is your conduit to the answers. So please reach out to them, and we will all participate in the response as needed. We are grateful for the partnership that we have with each of you, and in the work that we do in your counties in extension. And I just want to say thank you for spending time with us today. I also need to thank all of our presenters. They were put under a lot of pressure. We did pack it in, but we always want our audience wanting more information, not getting too much. So I think we accomplished that today. If you want more, you will have contact to those individuals that were presenting via their presentations or the bibliography that I'll be sharing with you a little bit later on in the week.
Polk County has
Last, I have to thank my technology folks, Wael Elwakil and Elisa Vinson, extension agents in Manatee County, and our IT specialist, Joe Gasper, Dwayne Hyatt. They were behind the scenes making everything work for us today. One little speaker glitch, but they managed to get us navigated through that. And I really do appreciate all of their efforts on behalf of this presentation today. So
I just had a question because of a light bulb that Tom made go off there at the end. So hopefully he is actually okay with these light bulbs. If I think back to my interview and on this two-way nature of communication and extension that has come up a couple times today, how much do you think our job is actually finding the right person in, you know, even if we as extension agents or extension faculty are not the experts in a particular research topic, I do sometimes feel like it's my job when a question comes in to find the right researcher in the university. And we mentioned there that Heidi is that matchmaker, but I personally feel that's just as important as the answers that I can give myself in my own area of expertise. So I just wanted to hear your opinion on that.
Oh, I would definitely agree with you. Especially when I was at the REC, you'd get questions that were outside of your field, but because you worked at the REC, you must know everything. You know? And so in that case, you know, I would seek out the expert that I knew could answer that question and guide that person to the right place. So yeah, I think that's part of our job as extension people who like to help people. You know, that's one of the aspects that we would do.
okay, Nicole Walker.
Okay, we got a question from our county manager, Polk County, Bill Beasley.
I don't know whether, Nick, if you can hear me, it's been a long time since the last time we met. I think it was out at Bach Tower, but I wanted to wish you well at the University of Georgia. Thanks for everything you've done, and I'm sure those folks are going to be greatly beneficial for what you're going to do for them. Look, I just wanted to give one takeaway from Polk's perspective is that I think IFAS is changing, and I think it's having to change. If you look at what we have traditionally used IFAS for, everything from family to community health and wellness, 4-H, ag, master gardeners, a lot of the traditional things will continue to kind of morph. But what we heard today were things that we have not traditionally heard: pond certifications, vegetative management, coastal management issues, data, disaster loss data management, all of the things that there's a tremendous amount of expertise at the university level that certainly is going to continue to apply at the local level. So what I'm seeing is I think UF IFAS is starting to change, and you're going to see more local governments want to tap that technical resource in a very big way. It will not replace consultants, but it clearly is going to be a resource to local governments, because you have a vast amount of technical expertise at the university. And these presentations today, I think, are going to start to form the nucleus of what local governments are going to ask for.
Thank you. Well, thank you, sir. And Dr. Place had to leave a while ago, but I will I'll convey your thoughts to him directly when I get with him tomorrow. But you're right. You know, and we do needs assessments, and as the needs of our clientele change, we try to respond to those, you know, within the realm of our expertise, which we do very well. And I think the Healthy Ponds thing was a great example of that. But you have this broad university, you know, surrounding us with expertise in many other areas that IFAS doesn't have in. And, you know, that's what we've been able to tap into. And I have to do, again, credit Dr. Place as such a great communicator with the deans of these other colleges, you know, that he's become very good friends with and good colleagues with, you know, and explain to them what the possibilities are. And that's really where it started, you know, with talks at the high level that's been able to filter down, you know, towards the, you know, the people that are actually doing the work. So thanks for that.
Okay, again, I say thank you to everyone who's been participating with us today. We look forward to working with you, hopefully seeing you in person in 2021 at some point. But know that our work and our partnership will be strong as ever, and we'll continue to producing good programming and support for your stakeholders and for our partners in county government. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.